Hello, my beautiful cuddlebugs. Welcome to Ramblings of a Book Dragon, where we dive into the warmth of good books and unravel stories that feel like a literary hug. I'm Allie, your host, and I'm thrilled to embark on another cozy adventure with you. So grab a cup of your favorite beverage, snuggle into your cozy reading nook, and let's begin. Before we do, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe so that you won't miss a single episode. I really value your feedback and recommendations. Now let's begin. Today I am reviewing Juliet, a jukebox musical, and I just had so much fun. And it is the last musical of the season for my theater, and it is also, not to be dramatic, always dramatic, but it is also my last show at this theater because I am moving. I know. We're not here to listen to the realities, but I will be moving in 6 months, and I will have to find a new theater in my new location. I know I haven't done a lot of theater musical reviews, but every once in a while I do get to the point where I feel like, okay, I do actually want to talk about it. And Juliet is one that I definitely wanted to talk about, especially since it is my last show. It is the end of an era, and I'm just... It was a very bittersweet feeling going in and seeing, knowing that this is my very last show at this theater. And Juliet, like I said, is a jukebox musical, and it is what if Juliet did survived and did not commit suicide after Romeo died. And I found it really interesting because with all the hype, it's really focusing on the whole Romeo and Juliet aspect, but throughout the musical, we're also, like, at the beginning of the musical, we're seeing Shakespeare as he is getting ready to talk about the beginning of Romeo and Juliet. It's the day of the premiere, and his wife, Anne Hathaway, comes onto the stage as well and is like, oh, I have been elsewhere and I've come for this play, and she decides that she wants to rewrite the ending of the show herself. And so she makes it into basically Anne Juliet, and she inserts herself as a character in the show, and it's very much a cotton candy musical, feel good musical about Juliet finding herself, finding her voice. But then what I really found interesting is that underneath that is, like, yes, we have the cotton candy-ness of it because it's very classic 90s pop, 2000s pop, 2010 pop. And it was all written by Max Martin, and I guess he had come back to help with as a composer. And with this musical, I found it really interesting because, like, yes, we have the cotton candy, like I was saying, but then underneath, we're also having the squabbling of a wife who feels unseen by her husband, because we hear from her that she just wants a fun, feel-good play. She doesn't want to deal with, like, she's upset because she feels like she's been basically abandoned by her husband to raise her children, and she's just here for a fun night out. And she just doesn't want a death. She feels like he wrote Romeo and Juliet, a young couple whose families hate each other and they commit suicides. She feels like he wrote this kind of as more of an insult to her anyway, because she's realized that he's never written about at this point in his life, had never written about a positive, happy marriage. And she's just wanting to give Juliet her own voice. And of course, we get all that through song and dance and the classic 90s, 2000s, and 2010s pop music. And I know this wasn't written as an homage to the millennial, but I felt like it just made me so happy because it was all, and I didn't realize this until I was looking at some other reviews, but the tying in factor, besides the fact that it's millennial pop, is that it was all written by Max Martin. So he wrote the songs for NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears. And when the very first song is Larger Than Life, it just, I knew I was gonna have a good time. And because, like, going into jukebox musicals, it's kind of like, am I gonna like this? Am I not gonna like this? Because I've never really been drawn to the autobiographical ones where it's all the same, other than ABBA, and ABBA is Mamma Mia, and Mamma Mia isn't even an autobiography anyway. It's a story, and it has the songs, but it's all from ABBA. ABBA, ABBA. And, like, with some of the other ones, like Ain't Too Proud and some, Jagged Little Pill, like, all those, they just, they never really grabbed my attention. But then, like, I feel like I've learned something from seeing & Juliet. It has to be the right songs for me to get really excited about a jukebox musical. Like, Mamma Mia is fun, feel good, classic, corny, fun. But I never really thought of it as a jukebox musical, but even though I knew it was all the songs by ABBA. But then, like, we got into some of the other more recent jukebox musicals, like, what's it called? Moulin Rouge. That was and, like, that one is fun, and it gets really corny, and that's the thing with them I've noticed is that they can get really corny, but it does truly have to be the right songs, because even though they had updated Moulin Rouge to newer songs, like, it was fun, like, and it's a fun musical, but it has to be the right story, and it has to be the right songs, because I knew, like, 90% of those songs, and with some of them, like, they were kind of tickling the back of my brain, like, I knew the artists, and I think I had heard them before, but it was mainly, like, looking at the 2010, like, that kind of makes a little bit of sense because that was going into college for me. It was after graduation, so focusing on other things. But, like, the 90s and early 2000s, whew, that just made me so happy. It just truly made me so happy. And so, like, and the fact that it got so boy bandy, like, yeah, it was a little corny at times, but the corny was mainly from with getting into the actual musical, besides the bickering between Shakespeare and his wife, Juliet wakes up and she's listening to Britney Spears' Baby One More Time. And it's just okay, schmoosh. She goes to Romeo's funeral, and she realizes how much of a philanderer he was, how much of a rake he was, as the saying goes. And so, and she writes herself in as one of Juliet's best friends, along with her other best friend, May, who is non-binary. And we do get a lot of feminism stuff in here. And I know some people, I believe I read in some of the reviews that some people felt like it was really pushing it to the more extreme. And it's like, well, it's just a feel-good musical, and you're not going in with the intention of the deep philosophical thinking of what Romeo and Juliet really could and should mean. Like, I don't, like, that's not the point of this. This is just a fun, feel-good romp of a fun musical with feminism and women finding their voices, and then, of course, and then some LGBTQ romance that is just so cute. Bless them in a non-bless them way. But they decide, okay, we need to get, because Juliet's parents want to send her to a nunnery because she had sex before marriage. That is shameful, shameful, shameful. So they decide Anne, who is called something else. I forget her name in this, but she's her best friend, April. That's it, April, because April, May, and then June, and then Juliet. It was cute. And so they decide, okay, let's go to Paris. And so they go to Paris, and they go to a new ball, and she goes, and the ball is for a young man named Francois Dubois. And Juliet mispronounces it as Frankie Dubois. And I just thought that was so cute because it makes it perfect for later on when they do a boy bandy moment where Frankie is going to sing with his father, Lance, And then Shakespeare, he's in there pretending to be some cousin and some other things that I'll get into later, but it's a whole boy bandy moment and it's singing everybody. And it was like, this just like it's so corny but it's so cute and I just love it. And it's just a lot of fun. But they go, and there is a little bit of a moment where Frankie, thinks that he likes Juliet, but it's because he doesn't want to join the army, and Juliet doesn't want to be sent to the nunnery, so they decide, okay, let's have a marriage. But then Shakespeare decides to insert himself, and because he wants some tension, he wants some drama. He doesn't want just a feel good thing where nothing really happens. There is no tension. There is no what's going to happen next. So he decides to insert himself in this while Anne is getting changed. And so he writes it where May and Frankie meet and they kiss and they sing I Kiss a Girl. I'm not going to go through all the songs, but I really love the moment afterwards where and Shakespeare starts quoting himself, and she says, I don't remember what she said exactly before that, but she said, "What did you do?" And it's just the way she said it is like, that is like it's just exactly the sound of like, oh, this wife knows her husband, she knows that he's up to something, and it is the most iconic way to end an act one, in my humble opinion, because Shakespeare decides to bring Romeo back from the dead so that he drank a sleeping draught instead of the poison. And because at the beginning of the show, Juliet's name is lit up by marquee lights and everything. So Romeo is coming down, standing on his own marquee, and it says Romeo, and he sings It's My Life. And the way the audience went absolutely feral, went nuts for It's My Life. I'm just smiling from ear to ear because just iconic. I love it. And Anne is pissed, rightfully so, because she is like, no, 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 you're not going to interfere with this. You're not going to do this. And he's like, no, I am going to do this because I'm Shakespeare and I can do what I want. And so they're starting to have their own little bickering that's intensifying. And while we're also having the cotton candiness of Juliet and everything, we're also learning more about the issues that are going on between Shakespeare and Anne because Anne feels unseen by her husband. But just the fact that Romeo is singing It's My Life is just so iconic, just so much fun. And at the beginning of the musical, Shakespeare and co were singing It's My Life. And it actually was really giving me, and even throughout this with him saying, because every time every time Anne says Will says, and William Shakespeare. And with him singing with the song at the very beginning, it just was really giving me the vibes from if you've seen Something Rotten. It's another musical about William Shakespeare, but it's very lighthearted. It's funny. It's about this young man and his brother who are also trying to write their own plays, and the brother decides to go to a soothsayer to see what Shakespeare's best play is going to be, and it's Hamlet, but because the soothsayer saw things wrong, they write about eggs. And it's eggs, like rotten eggs and stuff. It is hilarious. But the way Shakespeare was singing some of his songs in that were just like very arrogant, it's all about me. And I found that to be just really funny where like, okay, we're two very different musicals, but just very funny. I found it funny anyway. But throughout the story, Juliet is gaining her voice. She's gaining her own like I don't need a man. I don't need to be tied to a man. Like, she found herself engaged to Francois, but that was only to protect herself from going to a nunnery. And luckily, this is a fun, lighthearted musical because so that Frankie can experiment and realize, oh, I actually like this, not them, May, instead of a girl. And like, I guess yeah, because Frankie didn't really like girls. He just thought he liked girls until he met May and everything. And so, but luckily it was all very positive vibes because we know in history that if it was truly reality, they may have been forced to get married, him and Juliet, and then it could have gone it down a very, 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 very different situation. But anywhoosies, so then we learn, like, it's just a lot more other stuff going on, but Juliet and Romeo decide at the end that instead of being married, they're just going to date and Frankie and May come out to Frankie's dad, who's like, okay, yeah, that's great, blah, blah, blah. But overall, I thought that it was just a really fun, lighthearted romp of what could be. Some of it did get a little wonky and some of it did get a little cringy, but that's a jukebox musical in and of itself. What else are we going to expect? And I really love the fact that I always try to get some merch from the shows, and the cloth bag had the Anne Juliet sign on the front, and then on the back it had the songs, and it was separated by 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. And that just made me so happy. Like, I think that is truly just what I loved because it just made my little millennial old ass hearts just so happy that I knew the majority of the songs. I loved the majority of the songs. This was childhood, and the songs were written just some of them I wish were expanded a little bit more. Like, some of them were just so short. But you know what? That's fine. We're fine with that. It was just very fun, very exciting, and I thought that it was just really great. Like, I went in being unsure if I was going to like it or not, and just from the very first song, I knew I was gonna love it, and I absolutely adored it. Yes, some of it was probably a little bit like, okay, do we really need to go this route? But yeah, it was just so much fun. And then the fact that for the AM AMA American blah blah whatever it's called, um, they had just in New York on Broadway, they had Joey singing the songs as Lance the dad in the musical. He was part of it. It just made me so happy. And then in the UK, they had Lance as part of the I think he was interviewing for it. I didn't watch the videos, but it's just, oh, this is so iconically fun. Oh, it just made me so happy just to see, like, this just made, and like, it was just all the classics in sync. Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears. You can't go wrong with that. Bon Jovi, if you with the just so much classic, so much classic. I kind of wish that we did have a little bit more of the interactions between Shakespeare and his wife as kind of a better contrast between that and the play. But I felt like it was really good that it wasn't just Juliet not dying. Like, we actually did have that, like, additional depth to it, which was always very appreciated. But yes, so highly recommended. Very funny, very good, very cute, very tight, very clean. And so I will catch you cuddlebugs next time. And as always, if you have any recommendations, please let me know. Goodbye.